video we're going to look at a topic called estimation. In order to do estimation, you need to have a good grasp of how to deal with significant figures. So if you haven't already done so, please click the video shown on the screen and go and watch the video on significant figures, then come back. Okay, estimation then. The key word here is estimate. If this said calculate, then we'd be expected to calculate this exactly and work out the exact value. But estimate doesn't mean that at all. Estimate means roughly what's this going to come out as. And when you estimate, you use one significant figure for all numbers all the time. So what we're going to do is change this calculation into one that we can do much easier. And we'll change this 317. If we round that to one significant figure, you would get 300. Then we'll go across this 79 here. Well, that to one significant figure would be 80. And 202 on the bottom to one significant figure would be 200. So we're going to estimate that this calculation up here is actually roughly this one here. And then we just work that one out. So we multiply 300 by 80. In order to do that, we do the 3 times the 8, which gives you 24. And then we count how many zeros we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3 zeros here, so we'll put those on, 2, 3 zeros, and then we need to divide that by 200. Now an easy way to approach it at this point is, because these numbers both have lots of zeros on the end, is effectively just divide them through by 10 as many times as we can. So if I divided 24,000 by 10, I'd get 2,400, and I divide 200 by 10 at the same time, then I'd get 20. So this is going to give the same answer. There are still zeros on the top and bottom, so we can do it again. So that's dividing by another 10, so we've divided by 100 altogether now. And we've run out of zeros on the bottom now, so we need to stop. So this question here is going to have exactly the same answer as 240 divided by 2, and that's just half of 240, which is 120. So we estimate that the answer to this is about 120. If you did this in an exam and you tried to calculate it exactly, you're not going to be getting the marks. Okay, here's the second one. We'll try it in exactly the same way. So the first step is to round all of the numbers to one significant figure. So 4.2 to one significant figure, well, that's just 4. And then 648 to one significant figure. Now, this one is one that you need to be a bit more careful on. The answer is 600. If you watch the significant figures video, you'll probably understand why. But a lot of people will try and put this as 650 because it's very close to 650. It's only 2 away. But you must resist the temptation to do that and always round to one significant figure, not 2. So this 6 here is in the hundreds, so we're going to round this to the nearest 100, which would be 600. And on the bottom, 77 would round to 80. So we'll work this out. So 4 times 6 is 24, and then there are 2 zeros here that I need to add on, and then we're going to divide that by 80. We'll use our dividing by 10 strategy again, so let's divide by 10 and divide by 10 again, and now we've run out, so we need to do 240 divided by 8. Well, 24 divided by 8 is 3, and there's still an extra 0, so the answer to this question would be 30. Okay, here are 4 questions for you to try. Press pause and have a go at them, and then when you want the answers, press play and I'll tell you what they were. Okay, here are your answers then for this first one. We would round to 900, and then the 38 would become 40, and then divide that by 2. 9 times 4 equals 36, and then we've got 3 zeros, and that's over 2, and then that would come out as 18,000. This next one up here, 38, rounds to 40 plus 600 over 40, which gives us 640 over 40. Use the strategy again and divide by 10, you get 64 over 4, which gives you 16. For this next one, we've got 3 times 600 over 3 squared. Well, 3 squared is just 9, so we've got 3 times 6 is 18, 2 more zeros, and then that's over 9, and then that would be 200. And then finally 300 times 30 over 90. 300 times 30 equals 9, and then 3 zeros over 90. Use the divide by 10 strategy, you get 900 over 9, which gives you 100 as a final answer. Okay, let's look at a slightly different example then. The difference here is that we have this decimal 0.52 on the bottom, but we start off as before with rounding everything to one significant figure. So 400, and then the 66 would round to 70, and then divide by 0.5, remembering that we ignore this leading 0 here when we round to one significant figure. So we start to work this out. 4 sevens are 28, and then I've got 3 zeros to put on the end here, and then divide all of that by 0.5. Now, a really common wrong answer at this point is the number 14,000, but that is wrong. What people tend to do is see this 28,000, see this 0.5, and you know 0.5 is just a half, so you half 28,000 and get 14,000, but that's wrong. The answer to this question is actually 56,000. Now the reason for that is, if you're dividing a number by a half, you're saying how many halves go into it. Now you must remember that one whole, if I just take this circle as a whole, has two halves in it. I've got one half here and one half here. So if I've got 28,000 wholes, every single one of those whole numbers will have two halves in it. So for every one, there's 2, so for every 28,000, there's twice as many as that, there's 56,000. So dividing by a half is just the same as doubling the number that you're dividing into. So if you double 28,000, you'll get 56,000, which is the answer to the question. Okay, here are 4 with decimals on the bottom for you to try in exactly the same way. Remember that dividing by a half is just the same as doubling. Okay, here are the answers then. So for this first one we would do 20, we times that by 300, and then we're going to divide that by 0.5. 20 times 300 gives us 6, and then 3 zeros. And divide that by 0.5. Well, we learnt previously that dividing by 0.5 is like doubling, so double 6,000 is 12,000. For this one over here, we're going to have 5 times 300, and again divided by 0.5. 5 300s are 1,500, divided by 0.5 gives us the answer 3,000. And then we have 40 times 700 divided by 0.5 again. I'm sure you can see a pattern here. Is 28, 3 zeros divided by 0.5, which is 56,000. And finally 80 plus 20 divided by 0.5 gives you 100 over 0.5, and double 100 is 200. Okay, there's only one more type of example we need to look at, and we carry on like we did before by rounding to one significant figure. So we've got 500 on the top, times that by 60, and on the bottom this time we're going to have not 0.5 but 0.3. So let's multiply on the top. 5 times 6 is 30. Then I've got 1, 2, 3 zeros here. 1, 2, 3 more. So we have 30,000 divided by 0.3. Now you can't use that strategy anymore of just doubling because you're dividing by 0.5, because now you're dividing by 0.3. There's a clever way of approaching questions like this though. Do you remember previously when we crossed out circles and I used the green pen and we used that divide by 10 strategy to make our lives easier? Well, you can do the opposite. You can times by 10 to make your life easier. So if we times by 10 on the top, well, we'll get 300,000 rather than 30,000. And to keep this the same, we need to times by 10 on the bottom. 0.3 times 10 is just 3. So this here has exactly the same value as this up here. And we can do this much easier because 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then I've got these 5 zeros to add on the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer to this is 100,000. So the strategy here is when you have a decimal on the bottom like this, like 0.3, just times by 10 on the top, times by 10 on the bottom, and then you have a similar question which you can do. It's going to give you exactly the same answer, but it's much easier to approach. So here are 2 of these for you to have a go at. Press pause, write your answers down, and then press play, and I'll tell you what the answers were. Okay, here are the answers then. So for this top number, Okay, here are the answers then. So for this top line we have 500 plus 3000. I'm going to divide all of that by 0.7, which is 3,500 over 0.7. Then we use that strategy, let's times the top, 35000, so I've times by 10, and then on the bottom I've times by 10, which gives me 7, and I can do this because 7 into 35 goes 5, and then I've got 3 zeros on the end, so 5,000. And for this one we get 30 times 800, all divided by 0.4. 3 eighths are 24, and then I've got 1, 2, 3 zeros, divided by 0.4. Let's use the strategy and times by 10 on the top, so we get 240,000, and times by 10 on the bottom, 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6, and then there's 4 zeros left, so we end up with 60,000, which is our answer. And that concludes your video on estimation. This should allow you to answer any estimation questions that you'll be faced with in the exam.